The vast, sterile command room of the Galactic Dominion's War Council was an unfeeling expanse, a place where emotions had no foothold. The council members, representatives of various species from across the galaxy, sat in perfect silence, their eyes flicking to the vast holotable that filled the room's center. The projections of Earth's pale blue dot, surrounded by firestorms of space, flickered in and out of focus. Admiral Therax, an aged figure with the hardened shell of an insectoid species, spoke first. His voice, dry and rasping, echoed throughout the chamber. "It's done. The human resistance is crushed. We saw their attempt to fight back. They are far too weak to survive this." His multifaceted eyes narrowed, and the tension in the air tightened. He had seen countless worlds fall under the Dominion's reign, each conquered without issue. "No, Admiral." A new voice broke in, cutting through the air with a sharp edge. It was Counselor Kiva, a tall, elegant member of the Tyraxian species, her translucent skin shimmering with an almost ethereal glow. "You are underestimating them. We cannot ignore their resourcefulness. Their ingenuity has been unsettling. Even their primitive technologies, when combined, result in unexpected outcomes." A murmur passed through the council. The decision was still in flux, but it was clear that the moment was coming. Therax's 6 eyes blinked in annoyance. "You do not know them as I do, Kiva. I have seen them fight. The humans are like nothing we've encountered before. They're reckless, sure, but they adapt too quickly. They're stubborn, they have unpredictable tactics, and they fight like rabid animals. No other species would consider a guerrilla resistance after their cities have been obliterated. They should have surrendered." Kiva's gaze was unwavering. "That's precisely the point. We cannot simply destroy them and be done with it. They're different from any species we've dealt with. If we crush them too swiftly, we risk unleashing something far more dangerous. Their capacity for survival, it's extraordinary." The room fell into a heavy silence as the implications of Kiva's words hung in the air. Another member of the council, an artificial intelligence that had transcended its original creators, chimed in with calculated precision. "I agree with Counselor Kiva. Annihilation is not the solution. The humans possess something that makes them dangerous. It is illogical, but undeniable." The projection of Earth shifted again, now displaying the burning ruins of major cities. New York, Paris, Shanghai, once symbolized as powerful emblems of human might. The humans had fought with scraps of technology, their strongest defenses overwhelmed within hours. But something was still off. Kiva's next words hung like a prophecy. "I've had scouts observe their planet for years. These humans are not like others. They're wild, yes, but there is a vast untapped potential within them. If we destroy them completely, we risk making them martyrs, a rallying cry for others to follow. I say we test them further. We must push them to their breaking point, and then decide." Therax's antennae twitched with irritation. "Test them. We've already tested them. This planet is ours. Their leaders are fracturing under our attacks. They won't last much longer." Kiva locked eyes with the Admiral. "You have seen nothing yet. They're evolving before our very eyes. And when they push back, it will not be with primitive force. It will be with something far more dangerous." A new projection flickered into existence, a faint ripple of light, a strange anomaly deep beneath the surface of Earth, a hidden base of some kind. Project Gateway. The council fell into a stunned silence. Therax snarled. "What is this? Another one of their pathetic weapons?" Kiva's expression shifted into something darker, something far more knowing. "No, not theirs. Something older." And so, in the silence that followed, the decision was made, not for a swift victory, but for a final, crushing test. Humanity would not simply be destroyed. It would be studied, provoked, and driven to the edge. Only then would the Dominion make their final move. For in that ancient, enigmatic project hidden beneath Earth's surface, Keva suspected, lay humanity's true potential, something that could either save or doom them all. The first Dominion fleet arrived without warning. Silent and swift, its ships blotted out the stars above Earth's major capitals. Waves of sleek obsidian vessels, each equipped with energy cannons capable of obliterating entire cities in seconds, descended from the void. The sky shimmered as their cloaking technology activated, making them invisible to human radar and satellite systems. Earth's early detection systems failed to spot them until it was far too late. From the United States to China, Europe to the Pacific Islands, humanity's defenses buckled under the sheer weight of the invasion. The first salvo was a devastating pulse of energy that collapsed New York's electrical grid within seconds. By the time the city's inhabitants had even realized they were under attack, half of the skyscrapers were reduced to smoldering ruins. Waves of Dominion assault troops, ruthless, organized, and precise, flooded the streets, eliminating any human military presence with cold efficiency. But the humans did not crumble as the Dominion had expected. Across the world, in bombed-out cities, underground bunkers, and urban ruins, pockets of resistance ignited. What was left of Earth's military forces mounted desperate counterattacks, though their weapons were no match for the Dominion's overwhelming firepower. But the humans had something the Dominion hadn't counted on: each other. In the heart of Moscow, where the Earth Defense Accord, EDA, was hastily formed in the aftermath of the initial assault, General Mikhail Kirov stood before a hastily assembled war council. "We've seen what they can do. They will destroy us if we don't fight back. But we know something they don't. Our people," Kirov said, his voice steely with the weight of command. "We've been fractured for too long. Now we fight as one." The resistance's first victory came days after the fall of New York. In a small, nondescript town in the Midwest, a civilian militia group, armed with nothing more than hunting rifles and homemade explosives, managed to take down one of the Dominion's smaller ground transports. The Dominion fleet's advanced sensors failed to register the human ingenuity at play. Their tactic was simple, yet effective: bait and ambush. They knew nothing of what the Dominion had brought to Earth, but they knew how to fight for survival. And so began the unexpected: humans adapting, learning, and above all, fighting back. Despite the overwhelming odds, humanity's will to resist became the thing the Dominion had not prepared for. On the ground, resistance leaders scrambled to coordinate attacks, while civilians scavenged remnants of destroyed weapons and technology. The Dominion underestimated human tenacity, assuming their rapid technological superiority would leave Earth's population docile and defeated. But each victory, however small, only fueled the fire. Humans, it turned out, were not simply survivors. They were warriors in the making, and they would not be easily crushed. Above the planet, the Dominion's flagship, the Jixkar, orbited Earth, its commanders watching the unfolding battle with disbelief. "This is impossible," said Commander Lyrax, his 6 eyes narrowing as the holograms of global conflict played before him. "Their forces are chaotic, disorganized. Their weapons are primitive, yet they fight like they have something to prove." His adjutant, a gaunt creature from the xyloid species, clicked its mandibles in irritation. "The humans are unpredictable. They shouldn't even be able to fight back. We've crushed entire civilizations in hours. Why is this taking so long?" Lyrax's antennae twitched. He was not a strategist by nature, but even he understood that something was terribly wrong. The humans, they were not acting like any other species they had encountered before. The Dominion could destroy them, sure, but it was going to cost them more than they had anticipated. In a hidden underground facility in Colorado, a secret project, a last-ditch effort to counter the Dominion's overwhelming power, was being activated. The scientists working on it had no idea of the larger implications. They had no idea just how close they were to unleashing something that would change the course of the war. A hum vibrated through the floor, and the air crackled with unseen energy as Project Gateway finally roared to life. Deep beneath Cheyenne Mountain, In a facility once thought abandoned, something ancient stirred. The walls, reinforced with layers of obsidian rock and quantum shielding, hummed with life as the dormant project gateway came online. The air crackled with a strange, almost electric energy, as if the very fabric of reality was bending to its will. Inside the facility, a team of top-tier scientists and military engineers stood at their posts, staring at the glowing holographic screens in disbelief. Did we do this? Dr. Emily Carter, the lead scientist, asked, her voice tinged with awe and uncertainty. Looks like it, replied her colleague, Dr. Raj Patel, his brow furrowed as he studied the readouts. The system's active. It's drawing power from somewhere, but I'm not sure where. The project had been a failed experiment years ago, abandoned due to its risks and the strange, unexplainable results. It was meant to explore alternate dimensions, parallel universes, perhaps even time travel. But when tests showed that the gateway could distort reality itself, the project was shut down. And yet, here it was, humming to life again when humanity needed it most. Status on external power. General Kirov, who had accompanied the team after receiving an emergency directive from the Earth Defense Accord, asked, his voice steady. Dr. Patel tapped his console. Powers surging. It's coming from somewhere else. Some other place. Where? Carter asked, her hands tightening on the console. That's the thing. Patel continued, his voice shaking. The energy signatures don't match anything we've ever cataloged. It's alien. Kirov's jaw tightened. The Dominion invasion had overwhelmed Earth's military capabilities, and conventional strategies had failed. The resistance had fought back bravely, but their numbers were dwindling fast. Desperation was beginning to set in, and it was clear that they needed more than just primitive weaponry to stand a chance. Suddenly, a blinding flash of light filled the room, and the entire facility shook. The holographic screens flickered and went black. Alarms blared. Get a hold of it, Kirov barked. What happened? Patel frantically typed into the console, his fingers moving with practiced speed. I don't know. The gateway. It's opening. I think it's creating a portal. Something's coming through. There was a sudden, violent surge of energy, and the ground trembled beneath their feet. The portal itself, an ethereal, shimmering ring of translucent light, spun into existence in the center of the room. For a moment, the air seemed to bend around it, as if the very laws of physics had momentarily given way to something far more ancient and powerful. What is that? Dr. Carter whispered, her voice barely audible above the din of alarms. Kirov stepped forward, his military instincts kicking in. Seal the facility. No one gets in or out. We don't know what we're dealing with. Before anyone could react, a figure emerged from the portal, its form indistinct at first. Then, as the light dimmed, it became clearer, an entity with features that defied description, floating within a crystalline suit of technology that hummed with strange energy. Its presence was both alien and familiar, as if it had been waiting for this moment for centuries. The being, unlike any human, yet somehow human, looked down at the stunned scientists and soldiers, its voice resonating in their minds rather than their ears. You have awakened us, it said, its tone deep and otherworldly, yet there was a hint of something ancient and knowing in its words. We are the guardians of the gateway. And now you are the chosen to carry the mantle of what has been lost. A shiver ran down Kirov's spine. He had seen a lot in his career, but nothing like this. What do you want from us? Kirov demanded, taking a cautious step forward. The figure's eyes, if they could be called eyes, glowed faintly with an impossible light. We do not want. We offer. The gateway you have opened is the key to your salvation, and the key to your downfall. The Dominion cannot be stopped by your primitive weapons. But you are not as you were before. You have become something more. Kirov's heart raced. You're saying you'll help us. The figure nodded, and the air around it rippled as though reality itself was bending to its will. You have awakened the legacy of the precursors. Now you must decide. Will you be the saviors of your world, or the architects of its doom? Before Kirov could respond, the figure stepped back, disappearing into the shimmering portal as abruptly as it had appeared. Silence fell over the room, broken only by the continued hum of the gateway. The scientists and soldiers exchanged nervous glances, all too aware that the stakes had just been raised. The Dominion was not the only threat humanity faced now. The days following the appearance of the precursor being were chaotic. The military secured the facility, quarantining it from the rest of the world, while a team of scientists worked feverishly to analyze the gateway and the mysterious entity's cryptic message. General Kirov remained stationed at Cheyenne Mountain, coordinating the defense of Earth, but his mind often wandered to what he had witnessed in that room. You are the chosen to carry the mantle of what has been lost. The words echoed in his mind, but their meaning was still unclear. The Dominion was not the only threat to Earth. This other force, the precursors, had left behind something much greater than any weapon or technology humanity had yet encountered. Inside the facility, the gateway flickered with increasing frequency. Each time, it revealed more of its secrets, more of the strange technologies that lay dormant beneath Earth's surface. The team of scientists had discovered, buried deep within the precursor archives, blueprints for unimaginable machines, devices capable of manipulating space-time itself. Weapons of unimaginable power that made even the Dominion's arsenal seem like children's toys. Dr. Emily Carter, who had taken the lead in studying the precursor technologies, couldn't tear her eyes away from the holographic images before her. One of the devices was a series of intricate crystalline structures, seemingly made of a substance no known material on Earth could replicate. When activated, these crystals would resonate with frequencies that bent light and sound, creating impenetrable shields that defied the laws of physics. Another device appeared to be a weapon capable of disrupting molecular structures, essentially a beam that could turn solid matter into dust with a single pulse. A weapon of absolute destruction. But the most perplexing discovery was a data file, a record of the precursors themselves. The file was encrypted, but Carter's team had managed to unlock it. The images that followed were unlike anything she had expected. Beams of light and energy, their forms shifting and twisting, existing outside of the normal laws of reality. They had been the original protectors of the universe, maintaining balance in the cosmos, but something had gone horribly wrong. The Dominion had hunted them, destroyed their civilization, and driven them into hiding. Earth, it seemed, was one of the last refuges they had left. As Carter continued to pore over the data, a thought gnawed at her. What if the precursors hadn't been protectors of the universe at all, but something else entirely? What if they were the original conquerors, and the Dominion had once fought them for the same reasons they were now coming after humanity? The answer to that question, however, would have to wait. A transmission from Kirov interrupted her thoughts, the crackling static breaking her concentration. "Carter, I need a full briefing on this technology." Kirov's voice came through, sharp and urgent. "The Dominion is making their move. We've intercepted a communication. They're gathering reinforcements. If we're going to stand a chance, we need everything we've unlocked from the gateway." Carter's heart raced as she glanced over the vast data before her. There was no turning back. The precursors had awakened something in humanity, something dangerous. If they didn't learn how to harness this power, the war with the Dominion would end in annihilation. But even with this new technology, she felt a growing unease. What if, by using the precursor weapons, they were simply becoming another form of domination? Outside the mountain facility, Earth's sky darkened as the first wave of Dominion reinforcements arrived in orbit, massive warships filling the heavens. The final conflict had begun. But the humans were no longer alone. The precursor legacy had awakened, and with it, humanity's potential to shape the future, if they could control it. As Carter transmitted her findings to Kirov, she couldn't shake the nagging thought. Was humanity ready to bear the burden of such power? Or had they just unleashed something far beyond their understanding? The skies above Earth darkened as the Dominion fleet arrived in full force. Thousands of warships, each one a monument to advanced alien engineering, appeared in orbit. The massive flagship of the Dominion, Jixkar, loomed like a dark moon, casting an oppressive shadow over the planet below. General Kirov stood on the command deck of the Earth Defense Accord's central warship, his gaze fixed on the glowing screens that displayed real-time tracking of the incoming assault. The human forces were scattered, broken, desperate, but they had something the Dominion didn't account for: the precursor technology. "All units, prepare for impact," Kirov barked, his voice cold and authoritative. "Deploy the new weapons. We've only got one shot at this." On the ground, the scattered resistance groups were scrambling to make use of the strange, powerful technology that had been unearthed. From the crystalline shields to the molecular disintegration weapons, humans were forced to adapt to these unfamiliar tools at breakneck speed. The sheer complexity of the precursor devices was daunting. Many of them defied known scientific principles, but necessity bred ingenuity. Makeshift laboratories had popped up in every corner of Earth, where scientists and soldiers alike tinkered with the weapons, seeking to make them battle-ready. Dr. Emily Carter had barely slept in the past week. Despite the weight of the task ahead, she couldn't stop studying the precursor archives. There were hidden depths to the data that suggested something more than just a war machine, something far older and far more dangerous. She stood in the heart of a makeshift command center, flanked by Kirov and other military leaders, as the first wave of Dominion warships began to deploy ground troops. "We're ready, General," Carter said, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "The crystal shields are stable, and we've rigged the molecular disruptors to target their energy cores. But we don't know how long they'll hold up. These weapons weren't designed for human hands." Kirov gave her a curt nod. "We'll make them work. It's our only chance." The first wave of Dominion troops hit the ground with terrifying speed. Hundreds of heavily armored soldiers poured from their ships, their weapons already primed and ready for destruction. On Earth's surface, the resistance met them with everything they had, unleashing waves of firepower, bullets, explosives, and crude energy weapons. But they were no match for the Dominion's superior technology. Then, as if in response to the desperate need for salvation, the first of the precursor shields activated. A human soldier, barely trained in the alien technology, held up one of the crystalline devices, and within seconds, a shimmering barrier of energy sprang into existence, enveloping the soldier and his comrades. "Fire," Kirov ordered, watching from above as the human forces fought back with new vigor. The Dominion soldiers hesitated. Their weapons fired with deadly accuracy, but the shields absorbed the blasts without faltering. The molecular disruptors, powered by precursor crystals, lit up the battlefield. With a sharp hum, they fired at the Dominion's heavily armored transports, disintegrating the metal as if it were nothing more than dust. For the first time since the invasion began, the Dominion's forces were forced to retreat, their front lines cracking under the onslaught. Humanity's resilience, powered by the mysterious technology, had caught them off guard. But even as the Dominion fell back, Kirov knew this was only the beginning. The reinforcements were already on their way, and the true power of the Dominion hadn't yet been revealed. In the war room, Carter stared at the screens, her heart pounding. "This is just the first wave. If we don't stop them here, they'll come back stronger. And we don't know the full extent of these weapons. We don't even understand half of what we've uncovered." The looming question gnawed at her. Had humanity unleashed something too dangerous? The more they used the precursor technology, the more she felt the weight of its unknown potential. It was as if each new discovery carried with it a warning, something that whispered of darker times ahead. The Dominion had once feared the precursors. What if they were right? "We need to push back," Kirov said, determination in his voice. "We've won this round. Now we make them pay for every inch of Earth they take." As the battle raged on, both on the ground and in orbit, humanity had turned the tide. But at what cost? Each victory, each new weapon discovered, raised more questions than answers. And with each passing moment, the ominous feeling that the true enemy might not be the Dominion at all began to grow in Carter's mind. The victory over the Dominion's first wave was bittersweet. Humanity had shown the invaders that Earth was not an easy prize to claim, but the cost of the victory was already beginning to show itself. As the Resistance celebrated the brief reprieve, cracks were appearing in the fragile alliance that had come together to fight the Dominion. No one knew what the long-term effects of wielding the precursor technology would be. Dr. Emily Carter stood alone in the command center, her eyes fixed on a new set of data streaming across the monitors. The analysis was both promising and troubling. The precursor shields had held up against the Dominion's advanced weaponry, and the molecular disruptors had obliterated the enemy's armored transports with devastating efficiency. However, the more they used these weapons, the more they seemed to destabilize. "I don't like this," Carter muttered to herself as she examined the readouts. The energy fluctuations from the weapons were growing erratic, and the crystal shields were beginning to display signs of strain. Each use seemed to drain their power source more quickly, and the technology was requiring more and more maintenance to keep functional. "Dr. Carter," a voice interrupted her thoughts. She turned to find General Kirov entering the room, his face taut with concern. His uniform was scorched in places, a reminder of the battle that had just unfolded. "We've been pushing the Dominion back, but they're regrouping," Kirov said, his voice low. "We need to be ready for the next wave. Have you got any more of those weapons coming online?" Carter hesitated before answering. "Yes, but we need to be careful. The more we use the precursor tech, the more unstable it becomes. These shields, for example, they're starting to break down faster with each deployment. I'm not sure how much more strain they can take." Kirov's jaw clenched. "We don't have time to slow down. We can't let them take back what we've gained. I need you to find a solution. Fast." "I'm not sure if there is a solution," Carter admitted. "We may be tapping into something we don't fully understand. Every time we use this technology, it feels like we're destabilizing something. The readings I've been getting are strange, disturbing. The gateway, the technology, it's all connected. But I can't pinpoint what's wrong." Kirov looked at her, his brow furrowed. "Are you saying we could be making things worse?" Carter nodded grimly. "I don't know. But the more we use it, the more the fabric of reality around us is being altered. This isn't just about winning a war against the Dominion anymore. We may be waking something up, something that shouldn't be awakened." The air in the room grew heavy, and Kirov's mind raced. "What do you mean by something that shouldn't be awakened?" "I'm starting to think the precursors weren't just protectors of the universe," Carter said, her voice trembling slightly. "The more I uncover, the more it seems like they were conquerors. They sought to dominate entire galaxies. The Dominion didn't just fight them. They were trying to stop them from unleashing their dark power on the cosmos. I think we're using their weapons to open doors we can't close." Before Kirov could respond, the facility's alarms blared, cutting through the tension in the room. "General, we've got incoming," shouted one of the technicians. "The Dominion's reinforcements are arriving. They'd brought something new. It's unlike anything we've seen before." Kirov's heart sank. "What do you mean?" The technician's voice faltered. "It's alive, General. A massive ship. It's not like their other vessels. It's pulsing with energy. We don't know what it is, but it's heading for Earth." Carter turned pale as the realization dawned. They've been holding back. This is the weapon they've been saving for the final strike. Kirov's eyes narrowed. "How long do we have?" "An hour, maybe less," the technician replied. There was no more time for deliberation. The Dominion was coming in full force, and they were bringing something that could potentially turn the tide of battle. But even as Kirov issued orders to prepare humanity's defenses, a terrible thought crept into his mind. Had they awakened something far worse than just the Dominion? "Doctor," Kirov said, his voice steady despite the storm brewing outside. Is there any way to use the precursor tech to fight back against this new threat? Carter shook her head, her face drawn in anguish. I don't know. We've barely begun to scratch the surface of what we've uncovered. But whatever's coming, General, we may not be able to stop it. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the hallway as soldiers scrambled into position. The war was far from over, but with each passing moment, the stakes grew higher, and the consequences of humanity's alliance with the precursors grew more uncertain. The gateway had opened, and what came through it might not be what humanity had hoped for. The sky overhead grew darker still, the shadow of the Dominion's monstrous ship eclipsing the sun. It wasn't just a ship. It was a living entity. Vast, pulsating with ominous energy, its shape a grotesque, organic fusion of metal and muscle. It descended toward Earth like a predator, its arrival signaling the end of any hope for a quick victory. General Kirov stood on the command deck of the Earth Defense Accord flagship, staring at the massive holographic display before him. The monstrous ship loomed in the atmosphere, its size beyond anything Earth had ever encountered. It dwarfed the human fleet, a grotesque testament to the Dominion's cruelty and technological prowess. It's like they've combined their technology with living bioconstructs, one of the officers muttered, eyes wide with horror. We've never seen anything like this. Kirov's mind raced. The precursor technology had turned the tide against the Dominion's first wave. But now, facing the full might of their reinforcements, the human forces were outmatched. Even with the precursor weapons at their disposal, they were no match for this living fortress descending toward the planet. This is it, isn't it? Carter said, her voice hollow as she stepped up beside Kirov, her eyes still glued to the display. This is their final weapon. Kirov nodded grimly, the weight of the moment sinking in. We don't have time to wonder what it is or how it works. We have to stop it. Now. Carter's face contorted with frustration. It's not just the ship that's a problem, General. This thing, it's connected to the very fabric of the Dominion's power. I've been analyzing its energy signature, and it's unlike anything we've seen. It's almost as if it feeds off the planet's core, like it's siphoning energy directly from the Earth. Kirov turned to face her, his eyes narrowing. What does that mean? If it reaches the surface, if it anchors itself here, she began, but stopped herself, clearly struggling to find the right words. It could destabilize the planet's energy core. If that happens, we lose everything, Kirov finished for her, understanding the magnitude of the danger. The Dominion weren't just trying to conquer Earth, they were preparing to use it as a weapon that could tear the planet apart. The room fell silent. Earth had become the battleground, and the stakes were no longer just a war for survival. The survival of the entire planet was at risk. Have we made any progress on the precursor weapons? Kirov asked, the urgency in his voice palpable. He turned to Carter, his eyes intense. Is there anything left that we can use? Carter's face was pale, her hands trembling as she tapped a few commands into the console in front of her. The readings on the screen flickered, revealing the complex nature of the precursor technology, its immense potential, but also its deeply unpredictable nature. We've used most of the weapons we've unlocked, she said, her voice low. But there's one left, an artifact we've only just begun to understand. She motioned to a containment chamber on the other side of the room. Inside was a crystalline structure, roughly the size of a human torso, pulsing with a strange ethereal light. The energy it emitted seemed almost alive. A precursor artifact, perhaps the key to all their power. What is that? Kirov asked, his eyes narrowing in disbelief. We think it's a direct conduit to the gateway itself, Carter explained. If we can harness it, use it to amplify the energy of the precursor tech, we might stand a chance at repelling the Dominion's weapon. But it's unstable, Kirov said. What happens if we fail? Carter's voice was almost a whisper. We're not just fighting the Dominion anymore. If we use that artifact, we could open something far darker, something beyond our control. And if we fail, we might tear apart the fabric of space itself. Kirov's eyes hardened. Then we don't fail. He turned to his officers, barking orders as the final preparations were made. The human fleet rallied, taking their positions around the planet's surface in a desperate bid to slow the Dominion's descent. They had only one shot, one chance to stop the living fortress before it could reach Earth's core. As the artifact was prepared, Carter's mind raced. Could they truly control such power? She wasn't sure. The precursor technology was like a double-edged sword. It had given humanity the ability to fight back, but at what cost? Every new discovery seemed to come with a price, one that they might not be able to pay. But there was no turning back. The Dominion's weapon was descending, and if humanity didn't act now, they might lose everything. The countdown to humanity's final stand had begun. The air was thick with tension as the countdown to humanity's last stand ticked down. The living Dominion fortress, a behemoth pulsing with unnatural energy, hovered just outside Earth's atmosphere, its presence casting a suffocating shadow over the planet. Below, humanity's forces were bracing for impact, preparing their final assault. The precursor artifact, the last weapon in their arsenal, was ready, but no one knew if it would be enough. General Kirov stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Accord flagship, watching the final preparations unfold. The fleet was in position, their weapons primed and ready for whatever the Dominion might throw at them. But in his gut, Kirov knew that this battle wasn't just about fighting for Earth's survival, it was about something much deeper. Humanity's use of the precursor technology had already altered the course of the war, but it had also awakened forces beyond their comprehension. Forces they couldn't control. Carter was beside him, her expression grim. She'd been working nonstop, overseeing the activation of the precursor artifact. It was their last, desperate hope. "You're sure this will work?" Kirov asked, his voice low but sharp. Carter swallowed, her hands trembling as she glanced at the glowing artifact inside its containment chamber. "I'm not sure. The energy readings are unlike anything I've seen before. We could amplify the precursor tech enough to disrupt the Dominion's weapon, but we don't know what it might do to the fabric of reality. If something goes wrong, we die trying," Kirov said, his jaw clenched. "We don't have a choice anymore." Carter nodded, though the doubt in her eyes remained. "This isn't just about stopping the Dominion, General. The more we use this technology, the more I'm starting to think we're repeating a dangerous cycle. The precursors, whatever they were, couldn't control their power. They tried to dominate, and it destroyed them. We're at the brink of doing the same." Kirov's gaze hardened. "We don't have the luxury of wondering if we're doing the right thing. We fight, or we die. We stop the Dominion here, or we lose everything." The final countdown began. 5 minutes to impact, an officer announced from across the room. Kirov gave Carter one last look. "Activate the artifact. Prepare the fleet." The containment chamber opened, revealing the precursor artifact, its crystalline structure now humming with energy. The room was filled with a low, reverberating sound, almost like a heartbeat. As Carter and her team initiated the sequence to channel its power, the artifact began to glow brighter, sending pulses of radiant energy through the facility. The very air seemed to bend with the force of its activation. The Dominion ship, now closer to the surface, opened fire. Massive energy blasts rained down on Earth's defenses, cutting through the human fleet like a hot knife through butter. But as the first wave of firepower neared the ground, the precursor shields sprang to life, creating shimmering barriers that absorbed the incoming blasts. The Dominion's energy strikes fizzled harmlessly against the newfound protection. "Deploy the disruptors," Kirov barked. "We can't let them land." The molecular disruptors powered up, their beams of concentrated energy tearing into the Dominion ships, causing them to explode in violent bursts of light. Humanity's forces rallied, pushing back with every ounce of strength they had. But the Dominion wasn't done yet. The massive ship continued its descent, and as it neared the atmosphere, A terrible sound echoed from its depths, a deep, unholy hum that rattled the very ground beneath them. "They're charging their main weapon," Carter whispered, her eyes wide with fear. "If we don't stop them now, they'll tear Earth apart." Kirov's voice was steady. "We don't have any more time. Activate the full power of the artifact. Now." With a final command, Carter initiated the sequence. The energy from the artifact surged outward, flowing through the human defenses, amplifying their weapons, and creating a wave of energy that collided with the Dominion ship. The sky crackled with violent electricity as the two forces collided, a maelstrom of light and sound that threatened to tear apart everything in its path. For a moment, the world seemed to pause. The Dominion fortress, its power surging to catastrophic levels, struggled against the force of the precursor artifact. But then, with a deafening roar, the artifact's energy erupted, a massive pulse that engulfed the Dominion ship. The blast was so intense that it seemed to distort the very fabric of space itself, twisting reality and sending shockwaves rippling through the atmosphere. And then, silence. The massive ship faltered in midair before disintegrating, its fragments scattering across the sky like falling stars. The human fleet, battered but still standing, watched in awe as the once unstoppable force was reduced to nothingness. But as the dust settled, Carter's face drained of color. "It's not over," she said, her voice barely a whisper. Kirov turned to her, confused. "What do you mean?" "The artifact. It's still active. We've destabilized the energy, if we don't shut it down." Before she could finish, a blinding flash of light erupted from the artifact, its energy spiraling out of control. The ground shook, and for a moment, it seemed like everything would collapse into chaos. Then, as quickly as it had begun, the light dissipated. The artifact's energy stabilized, and the room fell still. Carter took a shuddering breath, wiping sweat from her brow. It's done. The energy's contained. The threat's over." Kirov looked out at the sky, at the wreckage of the Dominion ship now scattered across the heavens. Earth had survived. But as the dust settled, he knew this victory came at a cost. They had used the precursor technology to defeat the Dominion. But what other forces had they unleashed? What price had they paid? Humanity had won. But the true consequences of their choices would take years, perhaps centuries, to fully understand.